Welcome back to Wellness Wave. Thanks for tuning in this morning to ride the wave with us. We have a great show for you today. We're here with Art. Before we get to you, Art, I want to just say my name is Phil George. I'm a clinical biochemist, the certified personal trainer. And anything we discuss in the show is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice. So Art and I have been working together for a while, and unfortunately, you need to have a knee replacement, right?
Yeah, it happened, and I was scared out of my mind. And to really be honest, I was wicked scared, and it was a lot easier than I ever dreamed of.
Right, and one of the things, you know, I'm also a certified trainer, and two of the biggest issues I have with people is number one is back, and back is the number one problem for almost everybody in terms of workers' comp. But right behind it is knee, because most people's knee. And a lot of people don't realize that the knee is what they call a fulcrum. It goes like this. And for each pound you have up here, Art, is 3 pounds on the knee, okay? So we talked, actually before your knee replacement, we had talked about, and I thought you were going to do really, really well. And two of the reasons was your weight's really good. Do you want to show them your six-pack abs while you're on?
Well, I don't want to get everybody excited out there right now, Phil. You know what I mean? All the ladies watching might get a little nervous.
Okay, so no nudity then, right?
No. We'll keep it to a minimum. And plus, it's not Halloween either. So.
Family friendly show. So the other thing is, I know one of the things Art does is Art is very active, and he's always moving around, and you also do some stuff with the auto stuff. Yeah. So Art does a lot of what they call squats, and basically all squats are is you just stand up, and you're just going like this all the time, and that's a really good exercise on its own. And I'm sure you probably never meant to do a squat. But
you just do it.
You just do it because that's part of your life.
Of the lifestyle, right.
The other thing that they found is there's something called the blue zones. And what the blue zones are, they've studied countries like Italy and Greece and places like that. And they found that people live a very healthy life there. And one of the reasons is they do things like you do, which is basically they move around, they lift rocks, and they're going around. So they don't belong to a gym. Do you belong to a gym?
No.
Okay. But you're doing
Even though I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah, but you're doing it in a way, you're doing the physical therapy now, so we'll get into that a little bit later. But one of the big things with you is there's something called quadriceps, and the quadriceps are the muscle right here. And so what's happened is, okay, Art, I got a trivia question for you. Ready? What are the two largest muscles in the body?
Well, the heart? No.
No, heart's pretty big, but it's your glutes, your rump, okay?
Okay. Yeah.
And then your quadriceps are the second. So those muscles do an awful lot of work.
See, now you know why I'm not a doctor. I would have the heart. No. But no, you're right. And Phil, I got to give you some kudos on this, because before the operation, which I knew would be February 8th, and it was, I had like 2 or 3 months, and we've been doing your broadcast now for quite a few months, and one thing you said is to toughen up the muscles that you're going to be operated on. So I went out and got an exercise bike and just pedaled my little rump off there, and when I went in, the recovery was pretty amazing. I mean, the operation was another whole thing. I mean, I can give you from A to Z exactly what happened. I mean, you left downstairs, you went upstairs, and then they put the IV in and all that business, and then they're saying, all right, ready to rock and roll, and give you a little bug juice, and I don't know what that did, because I was awake when I went into the surgery room, and they gave me a spinal, which they said is just much better than just general anesthesia.
Right. We had that conversation too before the surgery.
Right.
So for people to know, I've had several surgeries. So anesthesia, there's always a danger with anesthesia. I mean, people can die from anesthesia, and you can have the same anesthetic over and over again, but the fourth time could not go well. So there is some danger, minimal danger, because I've had anesthetics before, so I'm not trying to scare anybody, but there's always a danger there. And then you were given a choice of either doing the anesthetic or doing the spinal. Let people know what the other thing, just a little bit of biochemistry. Pain doesn't actually occur in your knee. Pain actually occurs in your brain. It has to go up here for you to feel it. Some people are born with a very, very rare genetic mutation where they don't feel any pain ever. It's dangerous because you're burning.
Well, you're right. You could hurt yourself and not even know it.
The other thing, have you ever heard of phantom limb syndrome?
No.
Okay, some people when they get they get their arm cut off, and what happens is they still have pain even though there's no arm there.
Wow.
So what happens is you have nerves that goes up to your brain, and the brain tells you, you know what, you got pain, you better do something. It's our way of surviving. So what the block does, it blocks the pain coming from your knee into your brain. So you don't feel, they do that with women that go into childbirth. They call it an epidural. So when she has birth, she doesn't feel it as much because, again, it stops the pain from going to your brain. So we talked about that. And I think obviously your surgeon talked about that, and he thought that the spinal was a much better way to go for you. So for the listeners to know, if you have a knee replacement, you know, look for maybe an option of a spinal as opposed to an anesthetic.
Yeah, they actually had I went to UMass Memorial, first of all, and Dr. Mandel, he was sensational. And a few people in Leicester have used Dr. Mandel and had very good success, so I went with him through recommendations of other people. And they make you go through a 90-minute class before you can have the operation. And if you don't go to that class, then I guess you just don't get it and they explain anesthesia was the first thing, and then they talked about, you know, rehabbing and et cetera, what to expect exactly, where you're going to be in the hospital. Once you get out of surgery, you're going to be in recovery. They actually show you the recovery room. And then you'll have all the nurses are going to be with you, or the people are going to be with you. You meet them in the pre-operation room upstairs before you go in. Everyone introduces themselves, and they're the ones that are going to be with you during recovery when you go downstairs. So it's pretty good. You know all the people before anything happens, which I thought was a pretty good idea. And, you know, in the spinal, I was nervous about, and they did go over the spinal versus anesthesia, and just like you said, anesthesia is safe, but they believe a spinal is safer, and because you don't have tubes going down your throat, going into your lungs, especially when you're aged, it can affect not only your lungs, but it can affect your brain.
Let me interrupt you there, too. The other thing with anesthesia, it also affects your cognition.
Exactly.
So the older you get, so each time you have anesthesia, it does you know, I would say damage, but it affects your brain somewhat. So the older you are, the more it's going to affect you because, you know, even though you're a smart guy, it's still eventually, you're not as smart as you were when you were 20 years old, right? Probably not the same or maybe you're smarter now, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I'm smarter.
You're wiser. You're wiser.
Yeah.
Not necessarily smart.
Yeah.
So that's the other reason why is it does have some kind of a cognitive effect on your thing. That's why I agree with you 100%. You're much better off with the spinal. Less risk, less complications, and less risk of any type of neurological issues.
Well, when they mentioned in that pre-operation seminar that when you do get a spinal, it goes, well, you know, it'll sting like a bee sting. And anytime they tell you that a needle is going to sting like a bee, it's like you stuck your whole nest, your hand in a hornet's nest. Yeah, you get stung, but, you know. But in fact, and then she said that it's not uncommon, very common that, like, if you hit your elbow real hard, you know how you get that crazy elbow numbness.
Yeah.
They said your body will feel like that. And I knew, oh boy. In fact, no, it was none of that. It was just a bee sting. It was quick. And then they waited, and that whole area was frozen. And then they stuck a bigger needle in, I guess, and I was leaned forward and didn't even bother me at all. I did not feel absolutely nothing. Even tried to imagine it, and I couldn't even imagine it because I couldn't feel anything. And then they just kept pinching the side of your leg, and then eventually it started getting number and number and number, and eventually they grabbed your toe, and can you feel that? And well, no. All right, we're all set to go, and the next thing you know, I was out. It's more of a sedation, like if you get a colonoscopy or a tooth taken out.
Right.
That's all they do. Matter of fact, I woke up probably, or maybe 10 or 15 minutes before the end of it, and I could feel like they were pounding, and I didn't know what that was all about. Now I know out there I have a X-ray I don't know if Meg can find it. It's on the laptop on the front page. It'll be an X-ray before and after, and I'd like the people to see that. Actually, I thought they just kind of shaped the bones a little bit, but in fact, they they drilled and glued and everything else. The one on the bottom, and I don't know if she can show it or not, but it was pretty interesting. But you could almost feel the pounding, but I couldn't feel the pain or any of that. It was just weird, and I'm there, man, I wish I could go back to sleep. I don't like this idea, but they did have a cloth so you couldn't see what they were doing. And the next thing you know, they zipped it, and they do internal stitches, and then they glue the outside. So the internal stitches just dissolve, and on the outside it's just glued, and they said you'll have very little scar, if any.
So that's not going to affect your modeling career then, huh?
Well, it may a little bit, but who knows? But anyways, it was when I came back to recovery, and then they were just waiting for me to until I get feelings in my leg. They said it was a little bit more than normal. It took about maybe 2 hours before I got any feeling back in there, which they said was no big deal, but a little bit more than a normal person, but everybody's different.
But you're not a normal person.
Yeah, I guess not. And then they took this, you know how they do the baby, they take a little machine to see the baby, it looks like a baby or something. Well, they do that to your bladder. So that,
Ultrasound.
Yeah, so that they want to see how much liquid is in there, so that if you need to go, then that was another whole thing with, and I didn't want to get into catheters, I get all yikes, I'll go no matter what it takes, so I don't care what I do. And but anyway, she just asked me about pain, and they do give you a nerve blocker also, I got to tell you that. And that was actually in the operation room. In the end, they got the anesthesia, and what they do is they give you a nerve blocker, and they give you a needle in your upper thigh someplace. And because I couldn't feel it, but I know that's where they were doing it. And that's supposed to just take the nerve and just block it completely, the knee from the brain, and that'll usually last 24 hours. And when I went back to the room after all that, and they just said, "Where's your pain thing?" And I go, "Well, really none." I couldn't tell the difference. It didn't hurt at all. I mean, you could feel the bandage and all that, but it did not hurt, which I was surprised, because a lot of people I talked to said the first 2 weeks is
and I think
terror.
I think that's more normal than not. The tremendous amount of pain afterwards, because I've spoken with a lot of people that have had knee surgery, and they say, "I've had a hip replacement," and they said the knee is much, much worse than the hip.
Yeah.
So you're an anomaly in terms of what it is. But I want to get into the reason why I think you're an anomaly. You're unusual. Is one of the reasons why is because, again, you're in such good shape. I think that's the key. A lot of surgeons, I don't know about knees, in terms of hip, they won't operate on you if you're overweight, because I talk about all that weight goes on there.
Yeah.
So your weight's good, and your musculature is very good, because your quadriceps are very, very strong. And again, if you think about it, Art, basically your bone, it's a bone. Your knees are basically bone. It's cartilage, and it's tendons and ligaments. It's basically right there. So that's the only thing holding it up. So if you don't have the strong muscles here to hold it up, all the pressure goes there. So even if they do another one, all that pressure is going on the knee. But because your quadriceps are so strong, and you're in such good shape, and your weight is really good, that's, in my opinion, that's the reason why you came out of it as much better than other people. And we talked before the show. You were saying too, the physical therapist asked you how long it was from that surgery, and she couldn't believe how quickly you were already.
Yeah.
And you didn't follow directions either, did you? Because what happened was, she says, "Go on the bike, go slow," and you're doing the Tour de France on the bike, basically.
Well, she didn't think I could go around. Well, the first one, the time I went to physical therapy, she just basically measured the amount of straightness, the amount of bend I had, with no PT at all. And surprisingly, she says, to believe it or not, she has a knee you had operated, and it's got more movement than your left knee, which is, I haven't had an operation on that. She goes, here's the deal. They measured both of them. She goes, that one's better than the left one. The one I didn't have operated on that's pretty amazing. And she just couldn't believe how much I could bend it and all that. And then she did the muscles up on your what did you call this? part of your leg?
Quadriceps.
Yeah, they were sore. I'm going to tell you, they were sore. Not the sore where you'd say, "Oh my God, I can't sleep" and all that. When people told me you're going to be sleeping, you'll be lucky you get 3 hours sleep at night, or you're going to be. I went right to a regular in my bed and I laid down. I slept the whole night. But the next night, I mean, I did stay one night over in the hospital because of my age, and that was the only reason they had me. And actually, the food was good, and they were incredible. All the nurses, everybody I met there went beyond anything I expected out of a hospital. Really, they were just amazing.
That's good.
I got to give UMass Memorial a hell of a lot of credit. I was shocked. They really cared for you, you know. It wasn't just a job.
We got to send this to UMass. Maybe they'll sponsor the show. We give them a free plug. I think I wanted to mention, Art, just like with a knee replacement or a hip replacement, obviously you have bones, okay? Your bones have to be strong also. So whether you realize it or not, and this is actually for the women out there, what happens is you have something called osteopenia and osteoporosis. So osteopenia, you bones start, you don't have as much bone mass. You do something called a bone density test, where they basically look at your bone and they can tell how dense the bones are. Just like with the hip, right? Okay, I know you're a car guy, so it would be the same thing if you had to fix a car, but the frame was all rusted, right?
Yeah,
and you're trying to put the bolt in there, it's not going to work.
Right.
It works the same way. So when they're going to put these different apparatus, these metal or plastic things, you have to have strong bones to put those screws and stuff into it. It works. That's the way it works with the hip too. It works the same way. You don't realize it. You probably don't realize it, but all that work you're doing with your muscles, it's also building up your bone mass. Okay. So, especially for women out there, what you want to do is you want to build up as much bone mass as you can before you reach a perimenopause or menopause. Because once you reach menopause as a woman, your estrogen goes down and you don't build up as much bone mass.
Right.
That's why you want to do exercise, either go to a gym they call resistance training. But I other think the reason you recovered so quickly, because if they ever did a bone density on you, they'd find your bones, like your brain is very dense. so it's really dense there. So not only do you have the good musculature, you also have a good bone density, okay, because of all of the work you're doing. Even though you think you're not exercising, you are exercising, doing all those squats whether you're realizing it or not.
Yeah, it was funny that you say that. The operation was on a Thursday, and that Wednesday I went with the Ray boys, Route 9 Auto Group, and I went to the auction the whole day. And Paul said, "You sure you want to go?" And I goes, "I want to just go to get my mind off of tomorrow, and I just want to do something I love." And that's going to car auctions. I really like that. So it's a thrill to see all the different cars and the dealers. You meet friends and you talk to them, and so it's kind of like a social gathering, but a business gathering. But that was one thing that took my mind off of the whole thing. And but getting back to the physical therapy, we jump ahead now. And so the second time I went, that's when she asked me. She goes, the first thing she goes, "Well, you want to try this bike? Just teeter back and forth because you're not going to be able to go all the way around." And I went all the way around, and she just was dumbfounded. It was a week and a half later, and she just, "Oh my God, how did you do that?" And I don't know. And I did get stronger every single day. They gave me all kinds of exercises to do at home, but God, if you did all them exercises, the whole day you would be nothing but doing exercises. So
Right.
I did as much as I could in the time, and you do sleep a little bit, I gotta say that. And it just makes you tired. But other than that, I never had pain in my knee at all, and took a shower, and because we took our sliding glass doors and we put a shower curtain back up because I get easy to get it in and out. It's a walk-in shower, and we got a seat in there and all that, and I just walk right in there and bang, bang. And I can walk without I got one of these, what do you call them?
Walkers.
Walkers there. And I could walk without that because I was doing it at home, but they don't want you to, because if you lose any leg muscle and fall, they said that wouldn't be good. So I kind of just push it, but I really want to do what the physical therapists tell me because they're really good. And everything worked out well, and I'm getting better and better every day. And to be honest with you, I had my other knee done It is a pain in the neck. You got to lay on your back when you're sleeping, which you got to get used to.
Yeah.
And they do give you compression socks, or where they
Yeah. They're afraid of blood clots. That's the other danger of having a knee replacement or hip replacement. You can possibly through, because they're going there messing around with stuff, obviously, and there's a possibility of a blood clot. I had actually on my radio show, I had what's called a vascular surgeon on, and he talks about it. The other thing I wanted to talk about, but he says you don't have a heart in your legs. There's no way to pump it. So think about it. You're obviously your feet and your ankles are far away from your heart. So that's a long way.
Yeah.
So Art, how do you think that the blood gets back up to your heart? Any guesses?
I imagine it's a pump, so I guess.
There's no pump down there.
Well, the pump is up here, but if you're pumping down and you get enough pressure going down, it should push it
Yeah,
back.
but no, it goes down, right? But how does it get back? Okay, I'll tell you. It's your muscles.
Oh, really?
So what happens, that's the other reason you want very strong muscles, because what happens is each time you walk, Art, each time you do that squat, it's pushing the blood back into your heart. So if your calf muscles and your quads aren't that strong, it can't push it back into your heart. So that's what he was saying. There's no heart down there to push it back. And a lot of people, there's a condition as you get older, it's called sarcopenia. That just means your muscles are wasting away.
Well, yeah, that's true, yeah.
But yours aren't, because you're doing all the right stuff. For most people, if you're a couch potato, right, and you're watching, you never move, your muscles get weaker and weaker. Yeah. And they found out, Art, the reason why people fall down, they used to believe people get older, fell down because they lost their balance. They found out that's not the case. The case is their muscles are so weak, right? They hit a little piece of paper and they fall over. And then when they fall over, their bones are weak, we talked about, because they're not doing exercise. The bones, they osteopenia, and the bone crashes. They say the average person doesn't live much longer than 6 months after a hip replacement, because it all goes to hell at that point, because they're totally immobilized. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is, listeners, the viewers should do what you do. You should, if you haven't do it now, start doing exercises. Start going to the car auctions. No. So let me ask you this: when you go to the car auction, do you actually go and look under the car and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah.
See, again, these are squats. These are things.
So when I get down here, some people say, "Do you need a hand getting back up?" I go, "Well, no, I don't need a hand getting back up. I just get up." And yeah, you got to look at the frames. You got to look underneath. That Wednesday, I did not do any of that. They just had me stay in the cafeteria. I ate a nice breakfast, and then I went out and walked and watched all the cars going by, and they did all the hard
But
work.
see, you're doing all the right things without even realizing it, because just the nature of your work. So you don't have to go to the gym. Many years ago, I used to have this tiny little sports car roadster thing. I used to have a BMW.
Yeah.
And you know how low they are to the ground, right?
Geez, yeah.
So that's a great workout. So my sister, actually, who has a karate studios, and she's pretty active. And I noticed, we took a trip once, and I noticed having a really hard time getting out of that car because it's so low. And I said to her, "You're not doing your leg exercises, are you? Because your quads are so freaking weak."
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I had a friend about my age. He could barely get in and out of that car. He had to grab onto the thing to pull him, because his legs were so weak. There's something called activities of daily living. It means when they ask you, can you shower, can you get blah, blah, blah. One of the most difficult things for people to do is actually get out of a chair, because it takes the quads and the glutes. I was hired by the VA once to give lectures to the veterans, and one of the things I did was, I said, they were all about our age, right? I had them sit down. I say, "Okay, guys, what I want you to do is I want you to get out of the chair." And you see, but this is what they do, right? They put their hands here, and then they get up, right? Okay, say, "Now, guys, what I want you to do, I want you to put your hands across your chest, and now I want you to get up." A lot harder.
Oh, yeah.
There's a thing you can do. How many times can you get in and out of that chair like this over and over again? And there's a point. It measures how physically strong you are in your legs. So what I tell people is always try to get up and down from that chair, because it's a way to work those quadriceps and the glutes to get in and out. But again, you're doing it without even realizing it, because the nature of your job.
Yeah, yeah. It was really good. I mean, I'm really kind of surprised how well it went. I was very surprised. And big thing is no pain. No
That's
pain at all. And
huge.
I just couldn't get over that. I knew, wow. But like I say, you do have to lay on your back on your bed, and you have to have, like, my wife was there, and she took time off from work, and very essential, because she got the breakfast laid out, all the pills you got to take, and you're not as frisky. But I will say that first day after the operation, when I get back down into my room, they say, hey, you want to go take a walk? And I go, yeah, I guess so. And they got me right out of bed and took a walk up the hallway, and that hallway is awful big. And I get about halfway, and I said, yeah, I think that's about enough for me. And they said, great. And brought me back and said, yeah, we want you to just sit down in the chair. We don't want you laying in the bed. And I did not know the reason for all that, but it was exactly what you said. It was about blood clots. And they do put, I had the knee operation on my right knee. On the left knee, they put, and when I went into bed, it was like a circulator, and you could feel it going up your leg.
Oh, so it's like, oh, it's a,
Kept doing that.
yeah. What happens is, we talked before, because there's no way to get the blood from down here to up here unless your
Yeah.
muscles. So what it does is it mimics a muscle. So what it do is,
Yeah, just and it was actually, I got right used to. A lot of people, they say, well, they can't stand that when they sleep, and to me it felt kind of relaxing. And you're just like, wow, it's like someone massaging your leg.
yeah. So what it's doing, it's instead of using your muscles, it's contracting, and it's pushing the blood back up there.
Yeah.
Because you don't want a clot to be forming down, and it's called deep vein thrombosis. That's what people talk about at times. If you sit in an airplane too long, they tell you shouldn't sit too long anyway. But in the airplane, sometimes people will get that called DVTs, deep vein thrombosis, where they get a clot in a deep vein, and it causes a lot of problem. The problem with that, Art, if that clot gets loose, you can go up into your heart or up into your brain. You go with a stroke or a heart
Well,
attack.
I know someone that actually they had something wrong with their ankle, and and it was ACL, I believe. So it was bedridden for a bit, and yeah, he got a blood clot and went to his lungs, and he was telling me he got nervous, and eventually he couldn't breathe, and they called the ambulance, and they got him into the hospital, and he made it no problem. But he was just surprised. He did say to me, he goes, well, I was shocked that most people at that point don't even make it when they get to, where you can't breathe, it's in your
Right,
lungs.
sure.
But it was, okay, so we got, 3 minutes left to go. But it was really interesting. I didn't get any blood clots. And they do check your back of your, I don't know, what do you call this by your back of your...
The calf?
The calf.
Yeah.
They check that almost all the time when you go into physical therapy or any doctor's office, and they'll squeeze it, and they'll say, is there any pain back in your calf? And there isn't. That's an indication. If you got extreme pain there and it gets warm, you better call the hospital, because you're going to have a problem.
Right.
And I never had that. The thing with me was the muscles up above in the thigh, I call it. I don't.
Yeah, quite. Yeah.
And I couldn't get over. One muscle really did bother me. And she goes, well, the problem is when they do the operation, they put a tourniquet on to stop a lot of the blood loss during the operation. And then also they twist that muscle because they got to turn the bone a certain way or something. And that muscle actually turns and comes back again. And it's not used to that, obviously. So that's going to give you a little grief. The little grief it gave me was nothing. I mean, I was just totally shocked. Even my wife said, oh, God, she thought the worst, because we've talked to friends who've had it done, and they said the first 2 weeks are one hell of a ride, and it didn't even bother me. I watched the Super Bowl, and I was fine. I had relatives over, and everybody was cool.
But again, I want to let people know you're the exception. You're the anomaly. Okay. So
1 minute to go. So
it's okay. Okay.
You can
so
wrap it up.
I want people to know, before surgery, if you even looking down the road a year or 6 months, if they say to you, your knee is really, really bad, Start doing those exercises. Start doing the squats. Go to a gym, or you can contact me, Phil George at charter.net. I'm a certified personal trainer. I'll give you exercise. I'll get it off of YouTube, things you want to do. And even if you don't need a knee surgery or a hip replacement, do it anyway. Again, if you're a woman, in the 40s, you're going to start doing resistance training because you've got to build up that bone mass. Otherwise, you're going to wind up with osteopenia and osteoporosis. As you get older, you have to have a lot of muscle mass. You want the muscle mass because you want to be able to get up and move around. The other new saying is sitting is the new smoking. You don't want to be sitting for an extended period of time. I tell my clients, if you're watching TV, what you want to do is each commercial, don't fast forward it. Get up, walk around, do something. Mm-hmm. Just keep moving. Because the other thing, remember, because your muscles have to push the blood back up into your heart. So you're going to keep it moving. And if your muscles aren't strong, you're going to wind up again with some type of a clot or something like that.
Well, I want to thank you, Phil, for giving me some support during this time. And a lot of my friends gave me a lot of support. I want to thank all of them. And but we better wrap it up right now, or we're going to be late.
Okay, tune in next week. We'll have another fun show. Okay, thanks for tuning in. One of the most common questions I'm asked as a biochemist and health coach is, what are the best supplements to take? Choosing supplements is a tricky business. Many companies have poor quality control and questionable ingredients. In the past, I had to send clients to several different websites. I am now able to offer one-stop shopping for all the quality brands I recommend with no shipping cost and a lower price in most cases. Just email me, Phil George at charter.net, for a free consult.